I've long learned to keep my work life separate from my personal life. The precision of my biotech research position requires me to be meticulous, focused, and detached during the day. It's not unusual for me to spend hours hunched over my workstation, deciphering complex sequences, running experiments, and meticulously logging every result. By the time the day ends, my mind feels like a tangled web of equations, hypotheses, and potential breakthroughs. Today was no exception. The lab buzzed with activity as my team and I worked tirelessly to finalize the data for a groundbreaking presentation. Machines hummed, computers whirred, and the faint scent of ethanol lingered in the air. I spent hours analyzing gene sequencing data, my fingers dancing over the keyboard as I navigated through streams of results. By the time I glanced at the clock, it was well past 6, and my stomach growled in protest. Slipping out of my lab coat and into a casual jacket, I grabbed my bag and headed out. The brisk evening air was a welcome change from the sterile environment of the lab. I allowed myself a moment to breathe, leaning against my car and watching as the city lights flickered to life. The sleek bar on the corner of the street was a refuge I often sought, a place where the weight of my responsibilities could momentarily lift. Here, I wasn't Dr. Carter, the pioneering researcher. I was just Jordan. The bar exuded a warm, inviting glow, its neon sign casting a soft light onto the pavement. Inside, the air was filled with the low murmur of conversations, the clinking of glasses, and the occasional burst of laughter. I slid into my usual spot at the end of the bar, nodding at the bartender, who greeted me with a knowing smile. Without needing to ask, he prepared my usual gin and tonic, sliding it across the counter with practiced ease. I took a sip, letting the crispness of the drink wash away the remnants of my day. Leaning back, I let my gaze wander over the room. The bar was comfortably crowded, a mix of regulars and strangers sharing the space. The atmosphere was unpretentious, and that's why I liked it. It was a place where I could blend into the background, a quiet observer. But tonight, the quiet was short-lived. My ears caught a fragment of a conversation from the table beside me. A man's voice, loud and brimming with confidence, carried over the ambient noise. It wasn't unusual to hear boastful chatter in a place like this, but what stopped me mid-sip was the mention of my name. "Yeah, I've worked on Jordan Carter's latest biotech project, the one that's going to change the future of gene editing," the man said, his tone almost theatrical. I froze. My grip tightened on my glass as I turned slightly to catch a glimpse of the speaker. He was in his late 30s, dressed in a suit that looked a little too polished for the setting. His slick back hair and self-assured demeanor screamed overcompensation. He was addressing two women, both of whom seemed genuinely impressed by his tale. "Actually, I gave her a lot of insight," the man continued, leaning in for dramatic effect. "She wasn't really sure how to move forward without me guiding the process." My jaw tightened. The GeneX project was my brainchild, the result of countless sleepless nights and rigorous research. The algorithms, the experiments, the groundbreaking findings, it was all my work. And yet, here was this stranger, spinning a web of lies to bolster his ego. Taking a deep breath, I decided to confront him. Sliding off my stool, I approached the table with deliberate steps. My voice was calm, almost amused as I spoke. "Excuse me," I began, flashing a disarming smile. "Did I hear you say you worked with Jordan Carter on the GeneX project?" The man turned to me, his smile widening as if he'd just won the lottery. "That's right," he said, clearly pleased with himself. "The one and only, pretty impressive work, huh?" I tilted my head, feigning curiosity. "Impressive doesn't even begin to cover it, but I'm curious, what exactly was your role?" He puffed out his chest. "Oh, the behind-the-scenes stuff, the heavy lifting. Without me, the research would have stalled. Jordan's brilliant, no doubt, but she needed my input to get it across the finish line. My lips twitched, my amusement barely concealed. Fascinating, I said, leaning in slightly. Because I'm Jordan Carter and I don't recall having a consultant on my team. The man's face drained of color. His confident facade crumbled as he stammered for a response. I didn't mean, I thought. My smile turned sharper. Reaching into my bag, I pulled out my sleek black card and placed it on the table. My name, embossed in gold, gleamed under the bar's dim lights. Next time you decide to embellish your stories, I said, my voice cool and cutting, make sure the person you're talking about isn't within earshot. I straightened, savoring the stunned silence that followed. The women at the table exchanged glances, their admiration for the man quickly replaced with skepticism. I turned on my heel and walked back to my seat, the hint of a smirk playing on my lips. As I finished my drink and left the bar, the night air felt crisp and refreshing. The city buzzed quietly around me, and for the first time that day I felt truly at ease. Some battles didn't require a lab coat or a research paper. Sometimes all it took was a little confidence and the truth.
The hum of conversation filled Harper's bar, but Mike's table seemed to exist in its own bubble of excitement. He sat among his closest friends, his face lit with a quiet sense of disbelief. "It's surreal," he said, swirling his drink in one hand. "Landing the lead role in a film, who'd have thought? I've always dreamed of this, but I never thought it'd actually happen." His friend Jason grinned and leaned forward. "Mike, it's because you've got the talent. It's not luck, it's earned." Sarah, sitting across the table, nodded. "And don't act so shocked. We all knew you'd make it someday. You're the most humble person I know, almost annoyingly so." Mike laughed, shaking his head. "Thanks, guys. I just want to do justice to the part. It's a great script, and the director's amazing. I can't let him down." Unbeknownst to them, a sharp-eyed woman at the bar had been eavesdropping on their conversation. Dressed in a sleek black dress, her face twisted into a smirk as she sipped her martini. After a moment, she set her drink down and sauntered over to their table. "Wow," she began, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You really love the sound of your own voice, don't you?" Mike looked up, startled. "Sorry?" "You," she said, crossing her arms. "Going on and on about how you're the lead in a movie, bragging like you're the next big thing." Jason frowned. He wasn't bragging. "Oh, spare me," she interrupted, rolling her eyes. "Let me save you the trouble of letting this go to your head. I'm Vanessa Clark. My dad is the director of this film you're so excited about." She leaned forward, her smirk widening. "And I'm going to make sure you're fired." The table fell silent, and Mike stared at her in disbelief. Your dad's the director?" he asked cautiously. "That's right," Vanessa said, her tone icy. "So I'd watch how you talk about yourself if I were you." For a moment, no one spoke, until a low chuckle came from the end of the table. Vanessa's smug expression faltered as one of Mike's friends, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, set his beer down and leaned back in his chair. "Vanessa, is it?" he said, his voice calm but laced with amusement. She turned toward him, her confidence wavering. Yeah, who's asking?" "I'm David," he said, smiling faintly. "The actual director of the movie." Vanessa froze, her face going pale. "Wait, you're—" "That's right," David continued, crossing his arms. "And I've been sitting here listening to you lie about being my daughter and trying to intimidate one of my favorite actors." Mike couldn't help but stifle a laugh. His other friends exchanged grins as Vanessa gaped at David, completely at a loss for words. I didn't mean, she stammered. David held up a hand. Look, I don't know who you are, but I do know that Mike earned his role fair and square. He's talented, hardworking, and unlike some people, doesn't need to tear others down to feel important. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Finally, she muttered something unintelligible and turned on her heel, storming back to the bar. Jason burst out laughing. Man, that was perfect. David clinked his glass with Mike's, grinning. Sorry about that, Mike. Showbiz attracts all kinds, but don't let it get to you. You've got what it takes. Thanks, David, Mike said, shaking his head in disbelief. I'll try to keep that in mind. Sarah raised her glass with a wide smile. To Mike, the lead role, the best director in the business, and one of the most satisfying takedowns I've ever seen. Everyone laughed and toasted as the awkward encounter melted into an unforgettable night. If you liked this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to be alerted to future videos, be sure to hit the bell icon below. I post every day at 12 p.m. CST.